Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thanks. Yeah.
Hi,
So,
hello, how's it going?
Sergius, can you put your microphone on mute, please?
On mute, okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, I can see on the icon that we are being live streamed. So, hello everybody, and welcome to today's licensing review hearing. So, I am Councillor Gareth Shaw, and I'm chairing this panel today. My colleagues alongside me are Councillor John Martin and Councillor John Ball, and together we comprise the subcommittee. We have our legal advisor to the subcommittee with us, Ms. Hatoum Zeb, who's there, and Sean O'Brien is the Democratic Services Officer, who is serving as clerk for us today, and is taking the minutes and will write up statements and so on. Now, for those who aren't familiar with the procedures here, this is a review of a license hearing, so I will invite the applicants to present the application in the first instance and then answer questions from the panel and call any witnesses that he has, and I believe there is one in the room here today. They can then be questioned by the other relevant parties who've submitted their representations, so they can make any questions of the applicant for the review in the first place, and then we'll have their opportunity to make their own representations, and the roles will be reversed. Again, first of all, the panel will have the opportunity to ask questions, and then the application for the review will have their chance to ask any questions that they have. And then both parties will have a chance to summarise, and the sub-panel at that point will retire to take its decision. When we retire, the subcommittee will be accompanied by the legal advisor and the clerk, and then a decision will be given following that, and all parties will be notified in writing within 5 working days. So I hope that that is clear, or as clear as possible for everybody. So in the first instance, I will very briefly just introduce and confirm that this is the license review for Kopenick Supermarket, which is 153 to 157 Ruislip Road, Greenford, UB6 9QQ. And I will invite Mr. Deere, the licensing enforcement officer, who is the applicant for the review, to make his representation.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this is indeed a review, application to review Kopenick Supermarket in Ruislip Road, Greenford. These premises were granted, license was granted to Mr. Sergi Singh Arora on the 28th of May 2019, and he is also the designated premises supervisor. On the Friday, the 9th of February 2024, officers from licensing visit the premises with Home Office and Immigration Enforcement officers as part of a joint compliance visit. When they entered premises, there were 2 males working in the storeroom. These 2 males have been seen bringing out boxes from the rear shutter. Excuse me, one of whom was wearing blue plastic gloves. There was also 1 female working on the till, and another female found working at the back of the store. We introduced ourselves and the purpose of our visit. The 4 persons encountered were interviewed with the help of an interpreter by Immigration Enforcement, and the questions and their answers were logged contemporaneously. The 2 males were found to be working illegally in the UK by working more than 20 hours per week. One of the females had ceased studying at university, so her visa had been curtailed, and the other was a Polish national who had not applied for settlement status. had entered on a visitor visa, so had breached the landing conditions. When the immigration officers conducted their interviews, I completed the inspection form and found the following breaches of the licence that had been agreed when the premises licence was first granted with the police and from those submitted from their operating schedule. Under prevention of crime, there was bottles of Bibui, ABV 7% openly for sale in the fridge, and not all the beers with price mark breaching condition number 6. Photographs were taken, and these are exhibits RD1 and RD2. Under protection of children from harm, no challenge 25 posters were displayed, breaching condition 29, and no incident refusals book could be produced, breaching condition 31. And under general, no training manual could be produced, and that's breaching condition 14. An inspection sheet, exhibit RD3, was completed and the failings listed. A copy signed by one of the shop assistants was left at the premises for the premises holder to remedy the faults. The premises licence holder is failing to promote the prevention of crime and disorder objective and is falling well below the expected standard. By employing illegal workers, it allows a business to unfairly undercut other businesses by employing cheap labour, encourages those without permission to work to seek employment, it exploits the undocumented by paying them less than the minimum wage and provides no employment and income protection, and it deprives the HMRC and the government of revenue by non-payment of tax and national insurance. Hopefully there are immigration officers here. Their statements are included in the pack. And if you'd like to hear from any of them, Chair, they can be called. They're here to answer points of clarification. But due to the above incidents and the obvious disregard for the law, I would ask that the ultimate sanction open to the committee be exercised and the premises licence be revoked. It does say in the guidance that even finding one illegal work on premises should be dealt with severely, and revocation should be considered at that stage. I'll leave it in your hands, Chair, if you want to speak to any immigration officers or any of your other members.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Deer. I think at this point, I will just ask, are there any just initial points of clarification for Mr. Deer from the panel? And then I will ask Mr. Burton, who I see in the room, who I am assuming is your witness, Mr. Deer, as he was one of the witness statements included in the pack.
That is correct, yes.
So would you like to call him then?
I would indeed.
To take evidence from him next. I think that makes sense. So just Councillor Ball and Councillor Martin, do you have any just initial points of clarification from Mr. Deer?
Thank you, Chair. Could I just ask, was it a routine visit, or was there some had this information been received that there were employment offences being committed at the shop?
Sorry, sir. It was information sent to Immigration Service, so yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Do you have anything, Councillor Martin? No?
Nothing at this stage, thanks, Chair.
Okay, great, thanks. In that case then, Mr. Burton, as the witness for Mr. Deer, would you like to make your representation, please? Thank you.
Hello, yes. I'm John Burton. I was the officer in charge of the enforcement visit on the day, on the 9th of February, where we conducted a visit to Kopernik Polish supermarket on the Ruislip Road, following intelligence information suggesting that there were illegal workers on the premises. On attending the premises, we encountered 4 individuals that were illegally working in the UK, 2 Indian males that were issued with student visas, one of which had expired, one of which was still valid. Both of these individuals confirmed when interviewed that they were working in excess of their allowed 20 hours. and one was arrested for working in breach of his conditions. The other one had already expired his grant of leave and was served papers as an overstayer. An Indian female was also encountered. Her leave was originally as a student, and that had been curtailed on the 20th of January 2024. That said, she was also admitted when questioned that she was working 7 to 10 days, 7 to 10 hours a day, 5 days a week, which again, if her leave had not been curtailed previously, she would have been working in breach anyway. The fourth person encountered was a Polish female who had previously applied for settlement status in the UK in 2023. That had been refused and she had left the UK. She had returned to the UK on the 7th of November 24 as a visitor. And as a visitor in the UK, she has no recourse to public funds or right of employment in the UK.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Burton. So first of all, to the panel and Councillors Ball and Martin, do you have any questions for Mr. Burton as the witness?
I have no questions so far.
No, neither do I, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Burton. I don't have anything. That the statement seemed clear enough, and it was clear enough in the paperwork. Thank you very much, and thank you to you and your officers for the work involved in all of this.
Chair, may I just add something, please, as well?
Yes, of course. Yep.
The fact that I returned on the 11th of April to serve the review papers and obviously put up the required blue poster in the window. I spoke to the young Polish woman whose English was very, very good. And when I inspected the beer fridge, yes, the premises license holder had obviously read the inspection report and taken some action. One of those being the Challenge 25 poster had been put in the window. And secondly, he had removed the buoy offending beer, but just replaced it with another overstrength beer. And that's the only things I'd like to add. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Deere. Yes, Councillor Ball, I see you indicating the question.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So just to confirm what you're saying there, so the Polish woman, so one of the individuals who couldn't legally work here was still working here when you came on your second visit. Is that correct?
No, apologies, Councillor. This young lady has every right to work in the country. It's just her English was so good, she was the easiest person to converse with.
Okay, right. Thanks for clarifying.
Sorry, Chair, can I just ask Mr. Deere, just seek clarification? The overstrength beer that you had alerted the owner to previously was basically withdrawn and then replaced with another overstrength beer. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Okay, thank you, Mr. Deere. I don't have any questions at this point, so I will look and Mr. Semper. I believe you are representing Mr. Singh.
Certainly am, sir.
Yeah. Good. So I will invite you. Do you have any questions either for Mr. Burton as the witness or Mr. Deere as the application for the review?
Yeah, I'd both fine guys. I've dealt with Bob on the phone. His report's excellent. He's quite where he should be. I commend Mr. Burton for the excellent work they're doing. There's only one thing I'd come back on Bob, in as much that he told you that the statutory guidance says that these issues should be dealt with severely. Actually, the Section 182 guidance doesn't say that. At para 11.27 off the top of my head, it said that revocation should be seriously considered. And there is a difference between must be dealt with severely and that you should seriously consider revocation. That's the only point I'd make in whole of that. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Semper, for that clarification. I don't believe there are any other questions from the panel. I'll just check and round up. No. In which case, I will now ask Mr. Semper if you would like to make your representations then to the
I
panel.
certainly would, sir. Okay. Now, I am Nick Semper from the licensing guys, and we're representing Surjit Singh Aurora today. The paper bundle is before you, and I know that you'll have read them carefully, all those papers carefully, so I'll not run the risk of boring you by repeating them. Essentially, there are two facets to this review. One is the employment of persons not entitled to work in the UK, and the other is the breaches of the premises licence, the conditions on that premises licence. This is a sad course of events that's brought us here today, and is a source of much pain to Surjit. I'll explain why. Now, the premises known as Coppernick in Ruislip Road, Greenford, is one of a chain of 12 shops similarly named and operated by the same Sikh family. The annual turnover of this shop is around £1.7 million. These other shops are located, well, all the shops, I'll go through them. One's at Ruislip Road, the other one's at Greenford Road in Greenford. We've got one on Ashford Parade down there in Hanger Lane. Church Road and Northolt. Slough's got 3, Farnham Road, Stoke Road and East Chalvey Road. There's one at Hightown in Luton, one in West Street in Dunstable, one in Bitton Road, Southampton, Ashley Road, Poole, and lastly there's one in the Midlands there at Acox Green, which is part of Birmingham. Now, my understanding is that this suite of shops represents a very significant commercial enterprise, and to the best of my knowledge and belief, this chain has operated up until now, with a zero footprint with the responsible authorities right across the areas of the UK referred to above. Now, Surjit Singh Aurora is the company director, the premises licence holder and the designated premises supervisor. Due to some serious personal issues in his private life, he had recently stepped back a pace and had taken on Amanpreet Aurora, his nephew, as a trainee manager at the Ruislip Road Greenford shop. Amanpreet is 22 years old. He's a young man living in Hounslow and holds a personal licence in his own right. So technically, he knows exactly what his duties are as regards the Licensing Act. Now, Surjit Aurora delegated the management of this shop to Amanpreet. This included the taking on and training of new staff at the store. Surjit instructed Amanpreet that in onboarding new employees, the applicant's right to work details should always be checked, copies taken and kept on record. These details include the start of employment, national insurance number, proof of home address, photo ID in the form of a passport, etc., and any stamps therein explaining the conditions attached to that passport. Surjit has occasionally inquired of Amanpreet whether these processes have been followed, and Amanpreet has assured him that all was in hand. It is now apparent, blatantly apparent, that this system had broken down, unbeknown to Surjit Aurora. Amanpreet adopted a practice of taking on staff without thoroughly checking their immigration status and antecedents. He told one employee, for example, that they should bring in their supporting paperwork as soon as possible and treated the intervening gap between commencement of employment at the shop and the production of relevant paperwork as a trial period of employment. Though it may be true that 3 of these 4 persons were students working at the shop, permitted to work limited hours, they had actually dropped out of education without informing this young manager. It is clear, despite that Amanpreet had a duty to conduct proper checks and ongoing checks on his employees and monitor their hours and circumstances, and this he has failed to do, no doubt about it. It's also fair to say that the important consequences of Amanpreet's laissez-faire management style has resulted in a formal warning from the company directors of Coppernick. He would like to address the subcommittee later if you'd like to hear him, because he intends to apologise unreservedly in person for his poor management practices. However, these matters have been swiftly and summarily rectified and will be dealt with elsewhere by the Home Office Immigration Enforcement Team. Although serious, and there is no doubt about that, there is no element, I should say, of human trafficking or modern slavery present here. And the penalty notices expected to be served are eye-watering in their value. May I therefore respectfully suggest that we let the Home Office handle these matters regarding the immigration breaches. The second issue for you is the breach of the premises license, the breach of those conditions. Now, we were instructed comparatively early on in this review and visited almost immediately, armed by the comprehensive report provided by Mr. Deere, which was a very useful document, and I commend him for it. These premises are covered by that premises licence he referred to, issued by Ealing Council back on the 17th of April 2019. And yes, bottles of, how you say that, I don't know, that lager with an ABV of 7% was offered for sale in a fridge. Not all the bottles of beer was individually priced. There was no Challenge 25 posters, no instant refusals book, and no training manual. Now, dealing with each in turn, if you'll allow me, condition states that there must be no stock or sale of high-strength beer, lager or cider over 6%. And all beer, lager and cider must be clearly price marked. That's what it says, must be clearly price marked. Now, you could read that loosely as that it must have a price over the pile of stock, but actually we all probably know we'd interpret that as an individual label per bottle. Now, we inspected the premises, i.e. the licensing guys, we came down, tried to make contact with Bob actually, but he was dealing with an issue elsewhere on the borough or whatever it is, and he couldn't hook up with us at the premises, but no worries. We inspected the premises at the end of April, went through the stocks and fridges and found all to be compliant and in order. I'm sorry that he had that experience of finding a replacement beer over 7%. That is all news to us, and I cannot find that in the papers. And as such, I'm not sure technically it's admissible, but we accept what he's saying. Okay. Now, we inspected the premises and found one Challenge 25 poster already displayed on the wall above the counter to the right as you face it. And there was another placed to the left of the bagging area besides the till. Condition 31 states that there should be an instant refusal book kept at the premises and made available on inspection. So we provided an instant book and a refusals register from our stock of these things. We obviously provide a lot of these, both bound booklets to the staff and instructed the staff there and then how to use them. Now, condition 5 says that there should be a training manual available on the premises. Now, we provided a copy of the training manual regarding responsible alcohol retailing, that's RAR in licensing terms. Level 1, it's level 1 qualification under the government awarding body, and it's produced by Highfield Training, themselves a certified government awarding body like actually we, the licensing guys, are. I found that Sergio Aurora, the premises license holder, designated premises supervisor and co-director, Gurmeet Singh, a co-director, and young Amanpreet Aurora, the training manager, already possessed personal licenses in their own right. And whilst we were there, we trained an employee, Mr. Boyini Pally, in responsible alcohol retailing that same morning. Now, that Mr. Boyin Pally's certified training record was left with the DPS, along with the authorization record of those he's authorized to sell alcohol on his behalf, which is retained at the premises as the training and authorization record. We've since served on the licensing authority a further 4 training qualification certificates from every other member of staff employed at the premises. So the authority can have those, and we trust those are in order and before you in the bundle. Therefore, I can confidently report that all the breaches of the licence found by Mr. Deere were put right at the earliest opportunity, certainly by the time of our inspection, and the premises is now operating in complete accord with the conditions of the licence. Now, if you give me another few minutes, please, I'd like to talk to you about your disposal options today. Now, I've already explained that, whether committed through negligence or willful blindness, the Home Office will deal thoroughly with the matter of the illegal workers. Employing an illegal worker or a migrant who does not have the right to work in the UK incurs severe penalties. These can include a fine of up to £20,000 per worker or a prison sentence of up to 5 years or both. However, it's essential to note that as of the 22nd of January this year, the maximum civil penalty for employing an illegal worker was officially increased from £20,000 to £60,000. I'm sure Mr. Burton will confirm what I'm saying. So all employers need to be diligent in ensuring that their employees have the right to work in the UK through the necessary right to work checks, now in place at the shop incidentally in a folder there, and follow proper procedures to avoid illegal consequences. Compared to that, the minor and now corrected breaches of the premises licence almost pale into insignificance. Now, like I say, you've got several options before you, and they're made out in the excellent reports pack. It's been served on you in the preamble. First one you've got, revocation of a premises license. I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not absolutely sure that's necessary. The inevitable fines and consequences are more than enough to punish the immigration offences, and the breaches of licence are quite minimal by nature. In reality, they haven't sold drink to drunks or children, so there's no actual harm caused in terms of breaches of the licence, okay, and Licensing Act offences. Now, you already know this, but I'll say it anyway because I'd like to read it into the record. It's not actually the committee's role to punish. That's the role of the courts. Your role in my submission is to ensure the promotion of licensing objectives and compliance with the Licensing Act. That compliance has now been achieved and verified. I therefore respectfully submit that revocation is a disproportionate sanction in licensing terms. The second option you've got is suspension. There is no need. My submission is that there is no need for a period of suspension because suspensions are employed to allow necessary changes to be made in licensing, conditions or arrangements, training and what have you. So to get a premises up to speed, okay? These necessary changes are already actioned and are completed, and therefore a period of suspension is unnecessary. And would suspending the premises license actually benefit anyone now that the store is fully compliant? Now, removal of the DPS, we're definitely in my submission, we're definitely in that area. Now, it is true that Sergeant delegated an important management function to Amanpreet to his very great cost and detriment. He's since returned to full control of everything at the premises and has put everything right as soon as possible. You may therefore prefer him to stay in post and ensure that what went wrong never goes wrong again. In the alternative, you could replace him as the DPS, and there are others within this business who can step up to occupy that role if you so require it. Lastly, let us consider warnings, formal written warnings. I point you to para 11.17 of the section 182 guidance. It states there's nothing to prevent a licensing authority like yourselves issuing a warning to a license holder. It goes on to say that it's an important mechanism for ensuring that licensing objectives are effectively promoted, and that these warnings should be issued in writing to the license holder and therefore a matter of record and placed on the license back at the licensing authority. Now, in the unlikely event of any repetition, such a sternly written warning can be resurrected and weighed in the balance in coming to any future decision regarding any possible further breaches. Not that we're saying there will be, because clearly these guys have learned from this. But, excuse me, let's get rid of that phone. But were there to be future breaches, then you have the written warning already on record. Now, you'll hear shortly from Councillor Kelly, who will tell you about the valuable service that this shop provides to the ward. The loss of a premises licence or indeed a lengthy suspension will render it economically unviable. I'd respectfully ask you to apply appropriate weight to whatever Councillor Kelly's valuable testimony is or will be, coming as it does from a highly experienced, respected and grounded councillor in your borough. So in summary, please let the immigration enforcement authorities handle the immigration penalties as they surely will. The licensing breaches have now been remedied, so please let this business survive, move on and improve so that they continue to provide a valuable service to the Greenford community. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Semper. That was very, very thorough and covered a lot of ground for everybody. Now, panel members, Councillors Ball and Martin, do you have any questions at all?
Yes, please.
Yep. Would you like to start then?
Firstly, sort of towards the end of your remarks, you were kind of drawing a distinction between the role of the courts in punishing the immigration offences and the role of the panel in dealing with licensing. But is it not the case that prevention of crime is one of the licensing objectives? So that the fact that the circumstances around a criminal offence being committed in terms of immigration offences does that not go to the Licensing Act?
That's yes, of course. So, can I just congratulate you? That's a very astute question. Okay. The offence, and I will bow to your legal advisor on this, because I'm not, although I'm legally qualified, I'm not a practicing solicitor, so I will always bow to your legal representative on this matter. But in fact, any matters of law. But my understanding, licensing committees, their role is to ensure that the people promote the licensing objectives. Now, it is not in contention that the licensing objectives have not been promoted in this case. And what's before you is serious. I don't seek to minimise what's happened. What I seek to point out is the consequences for the breach of the Immigration Act will be decided by a court. It's their job to punish. Your role, again, I defer to your legal advisor, but your role is to ensure promotion of the licensing objectives. We can't rewrite history. What's happened has happened. But what we can do is forecast the future by putting it all in context, getting it all fixed, any further conditions you might want attached to the license. That is a matter for you, sir, and I wouldn't want to necessarily interfere with that. As that answer, maybe your legal advisor can come in and just confirm that what I've said is right.
Chair, I think the question that Councillor Ball was asking is that are the criminal offences potentially in regards to the immigration matters a relevant consideration for this licensing subcommittee? And my advice to the subcommittee is yes, they are relevant factors because they do fall under the crime and disorder objective as set out in the Section 182 guidance. I don't think the question went beyond that.
Right.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Well, in that case, I'll come back on that. If that is the case, yes, well, clearly, employing people without the right to work in the UK is a crime, and we apologise, and we admit it, and we apologise unreservedly for that. Okay, so that's our position on that. Yes, it does go to that licensing objective. It's what we all do about it was the distinction I was trying to make. So, thank you.
Could I ask another question, Chair?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So, in addition to the to employing people without the right to work here, they were being paid very much below minimum wage and paid cash in hand without tax or national insurance. So, how is it that did not come to the attention of Surjit Singh through the financial business records?
I explained before, sir, that Surjit, I don't know, can you hear me? Yeah, I explained before that Surjit had some problems in his private life. I'm not sure this is the right. Maybe I can email you directly while you're in recess and explain those. I don't particularly want to share them on a public forum. But he took a step back from the business. He shouldn't have done, but he did. And I'm afraid that inexperienced young manager adopted these laissez-faire management practices right across the piece. And that is the root cause of what we're dealing with today, sir.
Thank you.
Nothing further, Councillor Ball? No. Councillor Martin, do you have any questions or queries?
I've just really got sort of a seek a clarification, really. Thanks very much for a very extensive defence. However, I have to take some sort of exception to the fact that if we were to consider removing this licence, that the business may well go out of business and that it is a valuable resource within the Greenford area. I suspect that the fines coming from the Immigration Service may well do that in itself. I mean, you've already mentioned a fine of potentially up to £60,000. And I think if you add that up, there's certainly a minimum of 3 there that are illegal. So I think that may have some relevance to this. So I don't sort of agree that taking away the licence will put this, if that is what is considered, would put this business behind. There is, however, one thing I do want to sort of draw also to everyone's attention. Greenford has had a huge problem with regard to street drinking, and it does alarm me quite significantly, actually, that you mentioned that there has been no alcohol sold to any street drinkers. It's quite apparent that that area is notorious for street drinking, and I'd like you to clarify and provide, if you have any evidence to that effect, that you know that the alcohol has not been sold to street drinkers.
Again, a very sort of point question. There is no evidence before you, sir, that alcohol has been sold by this premises license holder, to street drinkers. If there were, then that would be part of the review. But as it's not, it doesn't necessarily lie before us today, sir. That would be my answer to that. Maybe Mr. Deere can help us. I mean, he's the man on the ground there. He can tell us if the, I don't dispute the fact that you've got street drinking problems in Greenford. I mean, it's part of society now. Whatever would break down. I don't want to get into politics, but clearly people self-medicate using alcohol, and there is insufficient resource to service to get them out of those difficulties. That's not in dispute. The thing is, sir, there is no evidence before you that Surjit Singh and Kopernik have sold alcohol irresponsibly in these case papers, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
I've noted you. Thank you, Councillor Kelly.
Thank you. Yeah.
So, I think Mr. Semper. Sorry, just a minute. Somebody was talking over me and I didn't get what it was. So if we just wait for the chair, then we won't have these sorts of issues. So now I did note Councillor Kelly indicating in response, I believe as this is his ward, he will have some relevant information on the ground that can probably help fill in some details here. And then I will also just sort of call Mr. Deere as well after this, as Mr. Semper quite rightly pointed out that Mr. Deere is the person on the ground and might have some more information that he might be able to help us with. Right, Councillor Kelly.
Thank you very much, Chair. Very useful question, Councillor Martin. But if you're quite right, street drinking in Greenford is an issue, in particular in Greenford Broadway, where there's a special policy area in place to try and address that. I would submit that this venue and this premises is in quite a different location. It's a small parade, about 3/4 of a mile down the road, quite separate to the Broadway. It's not a place where street drinkers congregate. It's and be quite frank, it's a place I go and shop, and it and I'll go to that to more listeners to later. It's a grocery offer complemented by drink. That there is no street drinking going on, and that's not to say people don't buy alcohol and drink it on the way home, because once it's out the curtilage, it's a challenge. But there's no street drinkers around there. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, so thanks for clarifying that, Councillor Kelly. I mean, I think that helped answer your question. I think Councillor Martin did it before I asked Mr. Deere.
It's interesting that it's been brought up as a defence. That's what I'm trying to get to, albeit that it wasn't alleged that that alcohol was being sold. So it was really just to seek sort of further clarification. But there is still an element of doubt that street drinkers can have or could have brought alcohol from there and walked down to the Broadway. But anyway, we'll move on now. I think we'll have some further questions, I think, further later.
I'm sorry. I mean, okay, sorry. Just
sorry, Councillor Kelly.
okay. Fine.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, you know, I think moving on. I think the points have been made and listened to. I think Councillor Kelly made his point that effectively it's outside the main Greenford Broadway area and the special policy area. And that to his knowledge, in his ward, it's somewhere he's familiar with, and that he isn't aware of street drinking being an issue. Sort of certainly outside it, not that you can vouch for anybody on the walk home or if they walk it down to Greenford Broadway, as Councillor Martin suggested. Now, Mr. Deere, would you just like to come in on this point at all?
Only thing, Chair, sorry, Chair, fingers and thumbs. I think, as Mr. Sempner said, it's not part of my review evidence. If you want my opinion, I think there are two types of street drinkers, and I think we've had this discussion before on various committees. You have people that leave work, buy beer in places and stand in people's doorways. If you ask me, want to know from me whether we've had complaints, in the past we have, but they stopped probably 3 years ago. So I have no recent evidence that people stand outside that shop and drink alcohol. All I will add is that strong alcohol, 7%, was on offer in that shop on 2 occasions. That's true.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Deere. Now, are there any more questions on this representation? So we are on questions for Mr. Semper and the representation that he has made, although we've diverged a little bit for some clarification of the local area from Councillor Martin.
Jim, I have one if somebody else hasn't got one.
Yep, go ahead then, Mr. Deere. I don't see any indications from my fellow panel members.
Obviously, Mr. Sempner has actually presented, and he's quite right, in the bottom of the Home Office representation, which I'm sure you've read. It does say section 182 of the guidance at point 1127 states that certain activities should be treated particularly seriously. I've just got my words mixed up, sorry. And this includes employing someone who is disqualified from that work by reason of their immigration status. Perhaps I'd like to ask Mr. Sempner or Mr. Singh, obviously on that day we went there by negligence or willful blindness, as the Home Office actually put in their representation. 1 illegal worker, no. 2, 3, but 4 illegal workers. You know, 4 illegal workers in one shop out of a staff of, I think there was 8 staff that day. I'm just wondering what Mr. Sempner's answer is to that. If he takes that seriously enough.
But Bob, that's in fairness, chap, that's not fair. Of course I take it seriously. Okay, we all take it seriously. It's an extremely serious matter. What has happened has been wrong. We accept that and we apologise unreservedly for it. Now, my point what has happened been so bad that these premises can never sell alcohol again? I think not, and I'll explain why. I think that would help if you can give me a minute or two. The Section 182 guidance of the Licensing Act, para 11.28 states it's that it is expected that revocation of the licence, even in the first incident, should be seriously considered. Now, that passage concerns a whole host of matters, including paedophile child grooming, serious gang violence, tobacco smuggling on an industrial scale, and what have you. Immigration offences is the 9th of 11 different subject headings under that para. Now, with respect, there is no implication of the imposition of a mandatory sentence of revocation there. The obligation placed upon us is simply and solely to consider seriously revocation. Now, to that end, we are all indeed right now seriously considering it. And in that consideration, what I'm respectfully stating is that, 1, we don't have to revoke that licence. Secondly, there's no element of human trafficking, modern slavery, or exploitation of vulnerable persons here. I suggest those behaviours would, if present, inevitably attract the consequence of revocation. Thirdly, the immigration service, the immigration offences disclosed are already under investigation and will be dealt with by the Home Office through the criminal justice mechanisms, with extremely heavy sanctions being brought to bear. But that is a matter for the Home Office and the courts, and not for us. Fourthly, as alluded to before, and I'm not sure if I made the point as well as I could have done, because this is a licensing hearing, not a court. That distinction is relevant in my submission, as it's not the committee's role to punish. That's the preserving function of the courts. And our mission here is to ensure that the Licensing Act of 2003 is being applied and the licensing objectives are being promoted as it is now to the letter. So that is why I respectfully submitted that revocation is a disproportionate sanction to impose in this particular case with this particular set of facts. And that is my submission to the panel on the matter of revocation. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not asking the panel to punish anyone. By their own admissions, they are at fault. I'm not at fault. The immigration are at fault. When it says in section 28 of the guidance states it is expected that verification of the licence, even in the first instance, should be seriously considered. I'm asking the panel to take this, as they do on every application, especially here with immigration offences on this borough, on its own merit. You know, we've seen premises revoked with one illegal worker. Exploitation, paying someone £5 an hour so they go and live in a very small space or a room with 6 other people, is exploitation. They were paying them £5 an hour. Would you not agree?
Bob, you're bringing evidence that isn't.
Sorry, or your clients. Sorry, not you.
Sorry, Bob. You're bringing in evidence that isn't in the papers. We don't know what conditions these people lived in. And yes, the whole thing, employing people without what we're dealing with here is employing people without the correct immigration status to work in the UK. We accept it and we apologise unreservedly. We keep going back to para 11.28. The obligation on the panel is to seriously consider revocation. That is what we're all doing. We are seriously considering it. We've been talking about it for 10 to 15 minutes now. That is all they're expected to do. The fact that revocation has been found to be a necessary sanction at other premises in the case of but one employee, frankly, is not relevant, because, as you've rightly said, each case must be dealt with on its own circumstances. Okay, and previous cases set no precedent in law for licensing hearings. Okay, so frankly, what's happened at other places before on completely different sets of circumstances that are not before the panel today, that's with massive respect, Bob, and I have got a lot of respect for you, mate. That's an irrelevant consideration, and that's about as far as I want to go on that. Thank you.
Okay, one last question, Chair. Sorry, the gentleman we mentioned, sorry, who was the trainee manager. In my opinion, well, I think the easiest thing to say is gross misconduct he's committed under in his employment. Has he been sacked or?
Been given a written warning. I'm not an employment lawyer, but seemingly sacking people isn't quite as simple as it was when we were kids. There is a procedure you go through, and he's been given a formal warning by the company directors. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Thank you. Now that I think is all the questions. I don't have any questions at this point for Mr. Semper. I'll just check with my panel members, Councillor Ball and Martin, just in case they have anything further they wish to ask.
No, nothing further for Mr. Settler, no.
Thank you. In which case, then Councillor Kelly is here as the ward councillor, and Mr. Semper sort of briefly mentioned him in his representation. So, Councillor Kelly, would you like to make your representation to the panel then, please?
Thank you, Chair, Councillor Shaw, and thank you for everyone. And can I just confirm that you've had sight of my statement that I made? Yeah, so I've got a nod from Councillor Martin and Councillor Ball and Councillor Shaw. So just to give you some background, I was I think I was chair of the licensing committee when I awarded or granted the license to this premises in 2000, almost 5 years ago. And it's been a place I've always shopped. The irony of this always is that I don't buy alcohol myself. I don't drink, so I won't be buying that. I don't buy alcohol from premises, or if I do, it's maybe once or twice a year. The offer in this shop is, well, when I say exceptional, it's the exception. So in that parade, there are shops that sell sweets, newspapers, and alcohol. This is generally a supermarket that has a delicatessen offer. Bob said there was 4 workers there, but there was probably 8 workers in the shop at the time. This is a shop you go into where you can get advice. There's someone cutting the meat. There's somebody else available for this. There's people there's people that can translate from Polish into English because it's got a wide Polish stock. Fresh meat, fresh food, strawberries, cherries, all the seasonal stuff. It is not a bottle shop. This is not a bottle shop. And Councillor Martin was quite right to say, "Oh, do people come in? Would people come in with and buy a strong bottle of beer and take it down to the Broadway?" Possible, but very unlikely, because there's lots of places around quite close by where they can buy single cans strong and take them to street corners and drink it. So this is my humble view, not the offer here. So we are here to seriously consider revocation, and I think we are. I just don't know how the area would benefit, residents would benefit from not having the wide range of offer in this shop. I'm not friends with the shopkeeper, but I would say is that they are friendly shopkeepers. You know, they are people that look out for the curtilage of the area. You go along there now, they've got a separate entrance for their deliveries. They've got a place that they squash their cardboard. It goes around the back. They always keep that area tidy. It's a well-run business. If it wasn't a well-run business, I wouldn't be here, okay? So just to give you an understanding of how they came to me is that I saw Mr. Deere and Mr. Burton on the Friday doing the enforcement visit. My wife was shopping in there. So when the review came, I wasn't altogether surprised. My advice to Mr. Singh was instruct a well-reputed licensing agent. And that's what they've done. What they have done is taken advice and changed everything in the operating schedule to make it compliant. Challenge 22, refusal book, removing the beer, training the staff, all the things that Mr. Semper has talked about. So I do not see any advantage in revoking the license. I do not see any advantage in suspending the license. And they've expressed mea culpa here throughout. They're not giving excuses for what they've done. I would contend it's a bit of omission than commission in this instance. So I would obviously I need to be careful with my words because I'm not on the panel, but you know, it's your decision to make, committee members. But I would implore you to put no sanctions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Kelly. Now, does anyone have any questions or queries for Councillor Kelly from the panel? Councillor Martin or Councillor Ball?
None from me.
Thank you.
There is just one from me, Councillor Kelly, if that's okay. Just to clarify for the area, you did indicate it's sort of about 3/4 of a mile outside the main Greenford Broadway special policy area. You just sort of mentioned, and it's in your written statements as well, that there are other shops in this parade that, you know, there are shops nearby within this parade that do sell sort of single items of alcohol that people could purchase, are there, just to get a feel for the parade and the area itself?
Yeah, I mean that's correct, Chair. So opposite is a place called Meet, MEET. That has what I call a grandfathered license. They got the license, so they do sell single cans. I'm not sure about the strength. And beside is a newsagent who also sell single cans. But I'm not suggesting for 1 minute that they serve to street drinkers. You know, I'm not here to say, you know, Coppernick's better than anywhere else. They're all, in my view, responsible operators.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Kelly. I was just trying to get a better feel for the area and using your local knowledge as the ward councillor, just to see what the offer is around there and what the competition or similar things are around there. That was all, and why I was asking the question. Right, if there are no other questions, then Mr. Semper did indicate that Mr. Singh might just like to make a brief statement.
Yeah. I actually, sir, can I just come in on that?
Yeah, by all means.
Amanpreet Singh has got rights. He's subject of a criminal investigation, as is the premises. The flavour of some of the questions put to him, and like I say, I don't want to personalise this. Sorry, put during the presentations. I'm just not sure that it would be right to put him on offer, because clearly, any comments he should make should be under caution as subject of legal advice. I wasn't expecting this. The channel of the questioning that I took to go that particular way. We came here to apologise, but I'm just thinking that perhaps as Amanpreet is not represented, I think I just should flag up that it's probably not a good idea. He should go answering questions here. Okay, that's what I honestly think, sir. Okay,
Mr. Semper. Well, in that case, you know, as you are his representative, if that is okay with you, Mr. Singh, I personally was just going to ask you to make a simple statement, because that was what Mr. Semper had indicated that you might like to wish to make to the panel, rather than opening it up for questions, particularly of you, because I think those questions can be dealt with by questions for Mr. Semper. So if Mr. Singh would like to make a statement.
Under that proviso, sir, that's extremely fair. I'm sure Sergi would like to address you and express his regret at what's happened. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Singh.
Hello, sir. Good afternoon. How are you? Yes, my name is Surjit Singh, and I really apologize for these things. So I was not in the shop on that day, and I heard from Mr. Amanpreet Singh, and he did like something. I explained him everything, how to check the paperwork and these things, all the things. So he didn't check because he's quite young as well, and I give him the training and everything as well what he did wrong, what I apologize for these things. So now we did everything which is here, the training courses, everything, and all the files for the staff, and we put the signs, everything. So everything's on the place. So whatever is done, so I apologize for this.
Okay. Yep. Thank you very much, Mr. Singh. Now, as I say, I'm not going to sort of open it for questions now. But I think, you know, thank you for the statement, and it really sort of confirms. I think Mr. Semper has dealt in sort of thorough detail for the panel, the representation on behalf of Kopernik. Now, if there are no more questions, then we will just move to summaries. And again, Mr. Semper, I will come to you to summarise first, briefly, if you may, because I think we have gone into some detail now, and then Mr. Deere will be able to summarise, and Mr. Burton briefly before we retire to consider our decision. Mr. Semper.
And it's not necessarily a problem, sir, but I believe it's me that finishes in summaries, if you wouldn't mind.
Yes, of course. Yeah. Yeah. Mr. Deere, then, sorry, to summarise. And I'll have to be quite honest at this point in time. I'm just pleased that I've managed to remember the summaries. That usually I just skip through them and try to close the meeting off for us to start considering our decision. So having done it but got it in the wrong order, I'm taking it as a win. Yeah, Mr. Deere, if you wouldn't mind summarising, please.
Thank you, Chair. Very briefly, we've heard a lot about the profit the money this premises takes. £1.7 million. We've heard from Councillor Kelly that the majority of business through that, or produce in that shop, is not alcohol led at all. It's the majority of that premises is groceries. So yes, if they lose the license, would it be a penalty to them? Well, not actually, it's not the word penalty. It's would they lose money? Yes, they would. My point is they should have considered that before they employed 4 illegal workers, breached conditions. Yes, we've heard that the licensing guys have been down there and give them certain books, incident refusals book. Where were they since 2019? If they didn't have them, didn't have them on the day, breaching the license with selling high strength beer. Yes, technical offences, but still breaches of that license. So I seriously ask you to consider what the guidance says. First instance, verification of the license still stands with my recommendation. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Deere. And now, Mr. Burton, would you thank you for remaining present throughout the hearing? And so I would just sort of ask you, I know you've been Mr. Deere's witness today, but if you would just like to briefly summarise, perhaps in a couple of sentences or so.
Yeah, so thank you very much, Chair. Just to clarify one thing, the civil penalty that is pending is initially not a criminal matter. It is an admin civil penalty. But that said, the 4 people encountered working that had no right to work in the UK were all working for less than the minimum wage. Students can ordinarily work 20 hours per week whilst they study term time. 2 of these people both stated that they were paid in cash in hand at some stage, some into their bank. And the Polish lady had no right to work at all. From the Home Office point of view, we fully support Mr. Deere's application.
Thank you very much, Mr. Burton. And Mr. Semper, if you would like to summarise then, please.
Right. Well, okay. I think everybody, me included, supports this application because illegal working is not acceptable on any day of the week, in any circumstances. We have apologised unreservedly. What Bob's described as breaching technical offences, yes indeed, they've all been put right almost immediately. We've taken no evidence of street drinkers. Councillor Kelly, who lives in the area and goes there every day, has there's no evidence before you, and he tells you of the nature and quality of this shop. Now, as we're absolutely in accordance with a letter of the law, para 11.28 says that we will seriously consider revocation. We've spoken about there's probably been the primary focus of this hearing. Okay, so no one can say that you as a panel, or indeed me or anybody else, has not seriously considered revocation in the first instance. I've explained why I believe that revocation and suspension actually serves no one. It would just be a punishment. I've explained that punishment isn't necessarily the remit of the licensing committee. Your remit is to ensure that the licensing objectives going forward are promoted. None of us in this room can rewrite history. Okay, all we can do is work out whether these licensing objectives will be promoted in future. I've been to the shop, I've trained the staff, I've put everything right. And to say that Sergeant and his team have learned from this would be something of an understatement. And therefore I'm saying, please do not revoke the application. Sorry, the premises license. Please do not suspend it. If you must replace the DPS, I think the correct disposal is a stern written warning putting on the premises license in case there are any reoccurrences in the future. Please do not destroy this business. You have discretion, and I ask you to exercise it in light of all the facts and circumstances that I've laid out before you. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Semper. Right, so that concludes then the hearing part of this subcommittee panel meeting. The panel will now retire into private with the legal advisor and the clerk to the subcommittee, and we will consider the decision and return to give the decision. Now, I note it's 20 to 2 at the moment, so I would suggest that we return perhaps at 2:30, if that's okay for everybody, for the decision part. I think that gives plenty of time for us to consider the evidence and the representations that we've heard before us, and to come to a conclusion to be able to give a decision. So I will see everybody back at 2:30 then in that part.